In this world, you are forced by the government to use a tracking device in your brain, known as Sibyl system, a system that can judge and determine everyone's crime coefficient in a numeric number. Depending on your number, you can be free, under observation, in custody, or even lose your life, regardless if you're innocent or not. Shinya Kugami is a formed inspector, whose criminal coefficient increased after seeing his ex-partner's body mutilated. He's been looking for revenge since then, to the point of getting demoted to a normal enforcer. A team of detectives from the Public Safety Bureau search for a criminal with a crime coefficient psychopath higher than normal. They get intel that the criminal has taken a woman hostage. Shinya Kugami is an enforcer, a criminal hired by the police to hunt other criminals. He's brought to the crime scene and ordered to help capture the criminal. Everyone receives their own AI-powered guns called Dominators, and new Inspector Akane Tsunemori is put in charge of Kugami, and another enforcer like him named Masayaka. Masayaka explains to Akane that Dominators activate when pointed at a criminal. Kugami tells Akane she's only supposed to watch while Masayaka catches bad guys, which makes Akane uncomfortable. He further tells her to shoot him without hesitation if he disobeys her command, making her more uncomfortable. Another team composed of Inspector Genoza and Kugari approaches the criminal, and finds out that the hostage girl is with him. As the criminal notices the detectives closing in on him, he uses the girl as a hostage and tries to escape. However, Masayaka and Akane manage to corner him, and Kugami instantly uses his Dominator to turn him into a heap of blood and flesh. Masayaka checks the hostage girl's crime coefficient, which is above the normal value. He opts to shoot her in cold blood, but Akane stops him at the last second. The girl quickly runs away during the commotion, but Kugami soon finds her and is about to shoot her when Akane tries to save the girl, saying she's the victim, not the criminal. She asks Kugami to have mercy on her and let her go, but he doesn't listen to her and is neutralized by her Dominator. Kugami wakes up in the infirmary and feels fuzzy because he was shot in the spine by Akane. Akane visits the infirmary to apologize to Kugami for shooting her. However, Kugami isn't blaming her for anything. He calls it a necessary part of her duty as his superior to take care of all his actions. He explains to her that he is the kind of hunting dog who only knows to obey and execute accordingly. He then acknowledges her sense of justice, praising her for making him remember that an inspector's real job is to protect people and not harm them. It deeply affects Akane as her eyes shed tears of gratitude. Their continued discussion causes Kugami to remember his true objective, which causes him to try to get up in a rage. Akane tries to calm him down. Later, Kugami returns to his workplace, and Akane explains to Inspector Genoza that the victim's dangerous psychopath level has been cleared after the therapy. Kugami also makes it official that he doesn't complain about being shot by Akane, which clears her of any guilt. A few days later, Kugami does some usual training and then looks at a blurred picture, which makes him angry. He visits an isolated drone manufacturing factory along with the whole main unit of the MWPSB to resolve a murder case, but finds out they can't use their Dominators to check the crime coefficient of criminals, making it hard to find potential murderers. They see a few workers bullying a guy named Kanahara during lunch break. The factory manager surprisingly says that it is a good thing because the workers can take out their frustrations on the poor guy. A person is necessary who helps them calm down. Kugami roasts the manager and helps Kanahara. Later, the detectives analyze some data and find that Kanahara's crime coefficient Q was very high until the murder happened. This makes detectives think he's the killer. Masayaka says the criminal's crime coefficient Q may change because of a constant grudge on his mind. And once he kills his enemy, the grudge is cleared out, and so is the crime coefficient. They set up an internet connection in the factory to make their Dominators work. Meanwhile, Kugami finds Kanahara and drags him out of a bathroom. He makes him think they know about the murders he's committed, saying that they know about the murders and successfully lure him to run freely and demonstrate the method he uses to kill other workers. Kugami predicts that Kanahara will have to use the same method he used to kill the last victim because of less time on his hand to devise a plan. Kanahara stealthily inserts a chip into a drone and uses it to chase after Kugami and Akane so that he can kill them both and clear his crime coefficient. Kugami takes Akane through the stairs and away from the drone. However, Kanahara persistently makes big holes in the floors and finds Kugami. Kunizuka gets there in time and throws a working Dominator at Kugami. Meanwhile, Kagari reaches there as well and corners Kanahara for Kugami to shoot Kanahara unconscious. The drone still attacks Kugami, but he uses his agility to take care of it, and the case is resolved successfully. The detective team investigates a man who has been missing from his apartment for 2 months. Jinoza tells them that the missing person's name is Hayama and he is an online celebrity. Kugami instantly figures out that Hayama might already be dead. When they turn on the last holographic design of the room at Kugami's request, they find an unusual scratch mark on the ground. Kugami also finds a leftover tape mark nearby, and then deduces that the murderer must have killed the victim by cutting him into tiny little pieces and then flushing the pieces down the toilet. Kagari tells Kugami that Hayama's online avatar is named Talisman. Akane, who has been standing beside them the entire time, says that she spoke to Talisman in the morning. This leads them to suspect that the real Talisman user has been dead for a long time. Someone else must be using their avatar. Akane and Jinoza enter the common field so they can find the imposter. Akane talks to Talisman's rival Spooky Boogie, who turns out to be her old classmate. Spooky Boogie promises to help and invites her fans to a meetup party, while challenging Talisman to a duel to ensure he comes to the party. The detectives reach the meetup place in an attempt to find Talisman. The Talisman receives a warning from a person about the detection of a Dominator in the building and tells him to leave. He hacks into the hologram and turns every user's avatar into a talisman, making it difficult for the detectives to find them. Akane speaks to Spooky Boogie's avatar once again in the common field, but she gives Akane a cold shoulder. Kugami analyzes the difference in the voice patterns of Spooky Boogie's conversation with Akane before and after the meetup and deduces that Akane wasn't speaking to the real Spooky Boogie this time. He says that she was talking to the murderer. After a little investigation, they find out that the Spooky Boogie user was killed with the same method as Hayama's, which confirms Kugami's deduction. Kugami searches for a Hayama's Talisman fan who never appeared as a Talisman fan after Hayama's death. Kugami points out the fact that the fan is the actual killer and is also the one behind using talismans. This methodical approach leads them directly to the murderer, Mato. After tracking Mato's last location to a hotel room, Kugami along with Akane and Masayaka raid the room to apprehend him. Akane demands that Mato surrender, but he manipulates holograms to create an illusion, creating an escape route for himself. Masayaka turns on water sprinklers to get rid of hologram illusions, and Kugami shoots Mato in the arm, but he still manages to run away, but still dies to the MWPSB. Later, Akane finds out that Kugami used to be an inspector, but he was demoted because his crime coefficient spiked to a point of no return. Kugami dreams of his former colleague and enforcer Sasayama, who was killed while resolving a case known as the Specimen Case. The MWPSB detectives team suspects that a single mastermind is behind recent incidents, including drone hacking and holographic manipulation. Kugami believes that the same individual who murdered Sasayama is responsible for the current crime scenes. Jinoza tries to stop Kugami from linking Sasayama's death to recent cases, but Kugami doesn't listen. Kugami, Akane, and Jinoza investigate the case of a girl whose body was found dismembered the previous night, but Jinoza bans Kugami from the case and asks Akane to keep an eye on him. The team learns that the art contains a girl from Uso Academy named Satsuki Kuzuhara, the same institute where the Specimen Case suspect was rumored to have worked. Akane tells Kugami about the similarities between the current case of a girl's dismembered body and the previous specimen case. Kugami tells Akane that he'll make circumstances, forcing Jinoza to involve him in the case. He then tells her about the merciless death of Sasayama and how badly he wants to repay the actual mastermind for what he has done. Then, he also shows her the blurry picture of the mastermind named Makishima that Sasayama was able to take. Akane finds Kugami investigating the case of dismembered bodies. She tells him that the culprit is definitely the one from the specimen case. However, Kugami denies it and says that the murders from the specimen cases always conveyed a secret message in his deadly arts. However, the art of dismembered girls' bodies lacks this originality, meaning the murderers are different, and the only thing similar is the medium of plastination. Kugami takes Akane to a facility where patients with a crime coefficient of over 300 are kept isolated. There they meet a mysterious guy who has completely changed his body in a bizarre way. Kugami shows him the pictures of the girl's dismembered body. The guy recognizes the artwork and says it is similar to Richie Aoryu's work. Akane checks out the Uso Academy records and finds a girl with the same last name, Rikako Aoryu. Kugami goes straight to the academy and points his dominator at Rikako, who is busy drawing her art. The dominator shows her crime coefficient to be very high. When he tries to shoot her, the principal of the academy stops him. Rikako quickly makes a run for it and is helped by Makishima's companion, who is disguised as a girl, in her escape. All of the MWPSB detective team gathers in the control room of the academy, and Kugami asks Kunizuka to analyze all of Rikako's camera recordings. Kugami notices Rikako enter the garbage disposal facility while looking at camera recordings. Kugami tracks down a voice clip of a conversation between Rikako and Makishima. This proves that Makishima is the mastermind behind this case. Akane complains about how close they were to capturing Kikaku, but Kugami reveals she must be already dead, which he is right. Makishima already disposed of her. Kugami and Akane go to an abandoned building to meet Akane's friend Yuki. Yuki had sent Akane an email saying that she wants to meet her there. Kugami says it's a trap and decides to go inside the location building, leaving Akane behind. Kugami enters the building and uses a communication device to communicate with Akane. However, Kugami goes into the building, but the signals for voice communication suddenly drop and he unknowingly enters the building part excluded from the building's navigation map. Kugami looks at a train and, even though it hasn't moved an inch, it suddenly starts moving at high speed once he gets on it. He finds Yuki tied up inside the train. He quickly comes to the realization that he's the one who is being targeted. The train stops and they both enter a facility. Kugami finds his communication device not working because of the signal jammers in the area. Suddenly, a cyborg dog appears out of nowhere and tries to attack them. There's only one way out for the cyborg dog, which is to go to the facility's basement where Senguji is waiting to prey on Kugami with Makishima as an audience. Kugami and Yuki go forward using chemical lights in the facility. Suddenly Kugami spots some old-fashioned but deadly traps ahead. Yuki notices a bag and moves hurriedly to grab it, only to signal one of the cyborg dogs to attack them. Kugami takes Yuki and escapes from the dog, but Senguji shoots at them once again. Kugami barely escapes the gunshots and saves Yuki. They take the hide and find a portable transponder without a battery or antenna in the bag Yuki had retrieved earlier. Kugami decides to take care of one of the cyborg dogs and successfully neutralizes it with the help of an electric rod weapon while giving Senguji a slip at the same time. He finds the transponder's battery on the dog and returns to Yuki after getting it from the dog. Yuki thinks that she is slowing Kugami down, so she asks him to leave her and save his life. However, he doesn't agree with Yuki's assessment and figures out that the antenna is hidden in her clothes. By that time, the whole MWPSB team was there outside the building. Kugami uses the antenna to communicate with the team via the transponder, and everyone moves inside the facility by tracking Kugami's location. An MWPSB drone successfully gets to Kugami. He takes the Dominator and skillfully shoots the cyborg dog charging toward him. Senguji shoots at Kugami once again, but he keeps dodging the shots. Makishima tells Senguji that the signal jamming device has been destroyed and the MWPSB has entered the building. Kugami once again moves around Senguji, and they both trade gunshots. Kugami lures him into a position and manages to destroy his arm, but gets shot in return by Senguji, getting injured. Senguji follows Kugami's blood splatters in the hopes of achieving victory, but is surprised when he finds Yuki instead. Kugami finds the opportunity to destroy Senguji with his Dominator, and the whole metallic body of Senguji gets destroyed. Kugami feels dizzy from the blood loss and Makishima appears and kidnaps Yuki. Kugami, who is still unaware of Makishima, barely keeps his eyes open and sees Yuki being kidnapped. Akane and Masayaka find Kugami on the ground. Masayaka gives him first aid, and Kugami tells Akane that her friend has been captured by another person. Masayaka tells Kugami to rest while he goes behind Akane. Kugami insists on tagging along, even though he's injured, which makes Masayaka headbutt him and go after Akane. Akane finds Makishima with Yuki as a hostage. She points her Dominator at Makishima, but the Dominator shows he has a normal crime coefficient value. This makes her unable to use the Dominator on him. She points Dominator at Makishima again and again, but Akane can't activate Dominator's trigger because Makishima's crime coefficient value keeps decreasing. Makishima throws a real gun at Akane and asks her to shoot him if she wants to save her friend's life. Akane's body trembles with fear, missing the gunshots, leaving Makishima to cut her friend's throat right before her eyes. She watches in horror as her best friend's life falls away, powerless to do anything to save her. Later, Kugami wakes up on a stretcher and watches Akane cry, telling him that the man was Makishima, and the Dominator doesn't work on him, only increasing each other's thirst for revenge.